Hello, Arabian Native Rider here, and I'm going to recite to you a bit of my story that I am typing right now, and it's called Finding a Friend, and I'll read you chapter 1. So, yes, enjoy the pictures that will be put up, or videos. It was a cold winter's day, and the horse paddock at the SPCA was full of mud. I stood shivering at the fence in a drizzle of light rain. In an anxious hurry to get there, I had left the house only picking up a thin rain jacket hooked in a cupboard under the stairs before jogging outside and making my way inside the garage. If I had stopped to think, I would have thought that bringing another horse into the family would be absurd and difficult. While in the midst of cooking a warm soup, Jane, a close friend of mine who worked long hours at the SPCA, had called to tell me a young mare had been caught roaming off the outskirts of Glasgow, only to be found by a farmer trying to find his lost sheep. He had called the SPCA to help to catch the free horse before counting a sheep and finding out he had actually miscounted in the first place. She asked if I could take the horse in for the meantime before she could find a proper foster home for her. I wondered at the thought before stupidly answering yes. I don't know why this time was different. Why in an instant I chosen to do something I previously avoided. In a rush I decided that I would give my commitment to a possibly injured or ill horse. Maybe that meant blood, needles, or a suffering animal, and usually I wouldn't choose that sort of thing. In short, I didn't like being sick, or seeing anyone or anything else in a similar situation. With such a fear of illness, why was I standing by a fence, waiting for a possibly injured horse to come into my care? Why did I say yes to Jane? Perhaps it was just that I had a formidable love for horses, passed down through my grandmother, an old, sometimes hurtful woman whose love was horses, nothing or no one else. It was grandfather who bought the giant ocean liners, snazzy old cars and antique prams, but my heart leapt to grandmother, who had what I'd always loved, horses. In the attic of their 6-bedroomed mid-60s house was a trunk full of old riding clothes, saddles and harnesses, all worn out or too small. As I was growing up, me and my mum sometimes drove down to see grandmother and her collection of old things. You couldn't miss them. China teapots, old paintings of grand horses, large gold-framed mirrors situated in the hallway, and that was just the start. But I found that, instead of having tea and biscuits with mum and bereaved grandmother, I repeatedly climbed up those metal ladder stairs and crossed my legs in front of the trunk. I sorted out the saddles, bridles and bits, and placed them out on the attic floorboards. Picking up each one carefully, I ran my little fingers along the old ruined leather, soft to the fingers, or in some cases the metal bits, brushing off the loose flakes of rust. Although these items weren't mine, I felt that they were part of me. There was also a coachman's heavy blazer stored in a bag, dug deep into a forgotten trunk. Emblazed on it were the letter M for Michelson, my grandmother's maiden name and my middle name. And amongst some other clothes, wool tweed riding jackets with small pockets and long-lined white jumpers, was a small keepsake item of a horseshoe. At that time, it was just bigger than my hand. The nails were still in it, gently pressing into my palm. I figured the shoe must have belonged to a pony. Grandmother used to have a cheeky little git of a pony called Tucker. My mother told me he was just my uncle's pet. Another means her brother's little pony. You could never get a bridle on him. Putting a rug on his back was a hard challenge itself. He lived most of his days in the boggy, dark corner of the pasture, where eventually, 20 years into his life, he died just a month before my mother's birthday. Even now, 34 years later, I still have that horseshoe on my shelf at home. It stares down at me, holding my past close and safe. One look, and I'm tugged into my past. Horses pulling large carts, grandmother's horses, horses eating hay, horses sniffing my hand, and shy horses, as heavy as grandmother's riding trunk. On either side of it, glossy red ribbons hang proudly. One of them was mine. I had won it at the only show I'd been to on Jasmine, my black Morgan. It had been a waste of a day, as Jasmine was a devil in the arena, backing away from a fence every time a spectator zoomed in a camera at us, shying at the buzzer that rang out when we started and finished the course, and snatching at the bit excitedly when the water jump came. You'd wonder why we got anything, but the honest truth is that we came last. But the winner of the competition, Joss Brown the Skyliner, dropped his rosette at the trailers. Without thinking, I picked it up when he wasn't looking and stashed it in my grooming box. I looked in his new Mercedes silver trailer and saw, pinned up on a large bulletin board near the ramp, he'd won many rosettes, so I was sure losing one didn't matter. It had been grandmother, of all people, who gave me my first horse when I was 7. His name was Oliver, grandmother sniffed, handing me the lead rope as she herself marched out of the pasture, leaving me alone with my new pony. Standing at the other end of the lead, I gazed up at a fat, brown body, slung between two sets of shaggy legs, with a tail that swept the ground like a brush, and a pair of two half-closed eyes under thick lashes. And for the first time, I felt very responsible for something. However, I felt like I was in deep danger, but I was holding a horse, my horse, the best thing that had ever happened to me. I wish I could say I was a natural from the start, that I had just hoisted myself up onto his back and gone for a wild gallop around the pasture. But the truth is, I had no idea what to do. I stood shivering in my purple summer dress, staring up at the pretty pony that in a second lunged forward, trampling me with 4 small but lethal hooves. It didn't really get much better than that, not with Oliver anyway. I went through years of dodging, trampling, kicking and biting, but I loved him anyway. He embarrassed me in horse shows, just like Jasmine. It seemed now I'd been possessed with no-show horses. Before entering the arena, Oliver would refuse to go in or roll before a jump. Occasionally Oliver would lighten up, and it would be a pleasure to ride through the trails, but those times were rare, before he went back to his obnoxious, moody self. But most of the time, he just brought tears to my eyes. At the age of 10, I was given a tall chestnut Morgan called Rose. I was shocked to experience such love and affection from a horse. I hadn't realised that I'd been so stereotypical, thinking that all horses were as bad as Ollie, until I met Rose. Since then, I'd grown an unremarkable love for Morgans. Now, when I walked into my barn, I was engulfed with timelessness. The old horseshoe holding my past, my childhood and present all rolled into horses. I already owned 2 horses at the time. I already owned 2 horses, and the time I spent with them was like a race. As long as you tried your best and finished, that's all what matters. I started worrying since I got older, since I got a bad back. I was worried I wouldn't be able to care for my horses anymore. I worried that I'd have to call my closest neighbour, Carol, and say to her that I couldn't care for my horses anymore. She had a stud full of horses, some which had posh breed lines, some which didn't. All what mattered to her was breeding foals. I was used to seeing them fumbling about the field, their long, muscular legs stretching out at every pace, held on by a fuzzy, bony body with a tail that bounded through the air. Beside them would be their mothers, galloping at a similar speed. Sometime in her late 60s she got arthritis that twisted her fingers and lung disease that stole her breath. For months Carol staggered from horse to horse, giving them their feed at a slow pace. She hid her face behind swollen hands and wept the day her horses got taken away to go to other farms or studs, and the worst, the slaughterhouse. One day I feared something similar would happen to me, but here I was, standing against the gate, waiting for a horse.